The Deep Space Observatory sat on the edge of a remote desert plateau, isolated and silent under the vast canopy of stars. Inside, the hum of computers filled the air, a steady rhythm that accompanied the faint tapping of keys. Dr. Eleanor Carter, a brilliant astrophysicist with years of experience analyzing cosmic data, sat hunched over her workstation, sipping on a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. She rubbed her tired eyes, blinking at the screen where rows of numbers and waveforms scrolled endlessly. Another routine night of data analysis, or so she thought. She adjusted the signal filters, letting the AI algorithms search for patterns hidden within the cosmic background noise. "Come on," she murmured, typing rapidly. "Just a little anomaly, something interesting." And then it happened. A sudden blip on the screen caught her attention. It was subtle, so subtle that it could have been dismissed as interference, but Eleanor knew better. Years of staring at the same datasets had given her a sharp eye for the unusual. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she isolated the signal, amplifying it and running it through multiple spectrograms. A rhythmic pulse appeared, faint but undeniably deliberate. Eleanor's heart raced. She leaned closer to the screen, adjusting the audio output. A low, whisper-like hum emerged from the speakers, punctuated by irregular bursts of sound. It wasn't just random noise. It felt intentional. "What the hell is this?" she muttered. The door creaked open, and Jason Reeves, her assistant and longtime friend, walked in, rubbing his eyes. "Elle, it's past midnight. You need sleep." "Jason, come here," she beckoned urgently, not taking her eyes off the screen. "I think we just picked up something unique." Jason's tiredness evaporated as he hurried to her side. He stared at the waveforms, his brow furrowing. "Is that a repeating patterns?" Eleanor nodded, her excitement barely contained. "It's repeating, but it's evolving, changing. It's like it's responding to something." Jason pulled up a chair, eyes locked on the data. "Are we talking intelligent signals?" His voice was tinged with disbelief. Eleanor chewed her lip. "I don't want to jump to conclusions, but it doesn't look natural. And it's coming from the Andromeda Galaxy." Jason's eyes widened. "You're saying it's extraterrestrials?" Before she could respond, the lights in the observatory flickered briefly. Eleanor's stomach clenched. Coincidence, she told herself. Just a coincidence. She pressed a few keys, recording the data. "We need to document everything, cross-check it with other observatories. If this is real, it's the discovery of the century." Jason nodded, already pulling out his phone to call their supervisor. As he dialed, the signal pulsed stronger, and Eleanor saw something new on the screen, an image embedded within the frequency. It flickered for a moment, a blurry outline resembling an eye. Her blood ran cold. "Jason," she whispered, unable to tear her gaze from the screen. "It's watching us." Jason stared, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do you mean?" Eleanor pointed at the screen. "Look at that. That's not random. That's deliberate." Before they could react, the speakers emitted a piercing, distorted sound that sent a chill down their spines. The audio feed had shifted. The whispers became louder, almost as if they were being spoken directly into their ears. Jason swallowed hard. Maybe we should shut it down for the night." Eleanor hesitated. Every part of her wanted to continue, to learn more, but a deep, primal instinct told her something was wrong. Reluctantly, she nodded and began powering down the system. As the main monitors flickered off, the whispering sound faded into silence. Jason let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Let's get some sleep and revisit this in the morning." Eleanor stood, feeling the weight of exhaustion settle in. "Yeah, morning." They left the observatory, the desert night stretching vast and quiet around them. But in the darkness, beyond their line of sight, something stirred. Back inside, the powered-down monitor flickered once more, and on the screen, the eye reappeared, clearer this time, and unmistakably staring. The observatory sat in eerie silence, the soft hum of its equipment the only sign of life. Outside, the desert stretched into infinite darkness, illuminated only by the faint glow of distant stars. Eleanor sat at her workstation, staring intently at the screen, the haunting signals still pulsing with an almost hypnotic rhythm. Jason sat across from her, rubbing his temples. Elle, it's 3 in the morning. We've been at this for hours. Whatever this is, it's not talking to us. Eleanor didn't look away from the screen. It's not just a signal, Jason. It's intelligent. It's waiting for something. Jason sighed, standing up to stretch. Or it's just cosmic noise messing with our heads. Maybe we should take a break. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and a strange vibration pulsed through the floor. Eleanor's eyes widened, and Jason froze mid-step. The monitors distorted briefly, then returned to normal. Okay, that was weird, Jason muttered, moving to check the power console. Eleanor's fingers danced over the keyboard. The signal, it spiked when the power fluctuated. It's reacting to something in our systems. Jason frowned, leaning over her shoulder. Are you saying it's hacking us? Eleanor shook her head. Not hacking, more like testing, exploring. Before Jason could respond, a low, almost imperceptible hum filled the room. It wasn't coming from the speakers. It was in the walls, the floor, and even the air itself. Eleanor swallowed hard. Do you hear that? Jason nodded, his face pale. I hear it, and I don't like it. She ran another diagnostic, her eyes scanning the incoming data. The pattern is changing, shifting. It's no longer random. It's like it's listening. Jason took a cautious step back. I think we should shut it down. Eleanor hesitated. If we shut it down now, we might lose our only chance to understand it. A sudden knock at the observatory door made them both jump. Jason glanced at the security monitor, but the desert outside was empty. Did you hear that? He whispered. Eleanor nodded slowly, her breath hitching. She walked to the door, hesitating before unlocking it. Slowly, she pulled it open. The empty night stretched before them, but an odd mist clung to the ground, swirling unnaturally. Jason shivered. I don't like this, Elle. Let's go back inside. Eleanor nodded and shut the door, locking it securely. The hum inside the building intensified, and the equipment flickered erratically. Suddenly, a shadow passed across one of the exterior cameras. Jason's voice cracked. Did you see that? Something's out there. Eleanor's pulse quickened. It's not out there, it's here. The monitors displayed distorted shapes, figures forming and dissolving within the static. The whispers returned, no longer fragmented but forming words. We see you. Jason stumbled back. Elle, we need to get out of here. Eleanor's hands trembled over the keyboard. No. We need to understand what they want. A deep, resonant sound filled the observatory, shaking the very walls. The monitors flickered wildly, and a single phrase appeared on the main screen. Not alone. Jason grabbed Eleanor's arm. We're leaving. Now. As they rushed toward the exit, the observatory lights went out completely, plunging them into darkness. Eleanor felt a presence behind her, something watching, waiting. Jason fumbled with the door, and it finally gave way, flooding the room with the cool desert air. They stumbled outside, breathless, as the whispers faded into the wind. The building stood silent behind them, the signal now gone. Eleanor looked back, a mixture of awe and terror in her eyes. They're not just watching, Jason. They're here. Eleanor and Jason sat huddled in the observatory's backup control room, their faces illuminated by the flickering emergency lights. The signal had gone silent, but the tension in the air was suffocating. Outside, the desert lay in eerie stillness, but the whispers lingered in their minds, echoing with an unsettling clarity. Eleanor's hands trembled as she typed furiously, pulling up every bit of data they had collected over the past hours. We can't just leave this, Jason. We need to figure out what it means. Jason ran a hand through his hair, exhaling shakily. We barely made it out of there, Elle, whatever that thing is. It's not friendly. Eleanor shook her head, eyes locked on the monitor. I don't think it's hostile. I think it's trying to communicate. It's been evolving, adapting, learning from us. Jason scoffed. Yeah? Well, whatever it's doing, it nearly fried our systems and scared the hell out of us. She ignored him, her fingers moving rapidly over the keyboard. She pulled up the last transmitted message before the observatory lost power. The screen flickered, and the words appeared again. "Not alone," Eleanor whispered under her breath. "It's trying to tell us something. But what?" Suddenly, a low humming sound filled the room again, vibrating through the walls. Jason grabbed her arm. "Elle, stop. You're still connected to the main feed. We need to get out of here before it does something worse." Eleanor hesitated, staring at the message. "If I disconnect now, we might lose everything. This could be the most significant discovery in human history." Jason shook his head. "Or our last mistake." Before she could respond, the lights dimmed, and the humming grew louder. Eleanor's screen went black for a moment before a new message appeared. "You are listening." Eleanor's eyes widened. "Jason, it's acknowledging us. It knows we're here." Jason's face turned pale. "Yeah? Well, that's not exactly comforting." The emergency alarm blared suddenly, and the entire facility vibrated under an unseen force. Eleanor scrambled to shut down the system, but another message appeared before she could pull the plug. "We see you." Jason grabbed her by the wrist. "We need to leave."
Now?
They rushed out of the backup control room and down the dimly lit corridor. The whispering grew louder, as if it was following them. The walls seemed to pulse with a strange energy, and Eleanor felt an invisible pressure pressing against her chest. "Come on," Jason yelled, yanking open the exit door. They burst into the cold desert air, gasping for breath. The wind howled around them, but it wasn't the wind. It was the whispers now all around them, encircling them like an unseen presence. Eleanor's eyes darted across the empty landscape, but something felt off. She could see shadows moving along the distant dunes, humanoid shapes that seemed to flicker in and out of reality. "Do you see that?" Eleanor whispered. Jason nodded, his face drained of color. "Elle, we're leaving right now." They sprinted to their truck, Jason fumbling with the keys as Eleanor kept her gaze locked on the shifting shadows. As soon as the engine roared to life, the whispers faded slightly, but they never disappeared completely. As they sped away from the observatory, Eleanor stared at the monitor in the dashboard, where a final message flickered in faint green text. "It begins." Jason glanced at her. "What the hell does that mean?" Eleanor swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. I think this was just the first step. And whatever comes next, we're not ready for it."